5 years of icy silence breaks at graduation when my stepdaughter delivers a crushing secret, but the real explosion happens when a block number reveals that my dead wife's accident was actually a murder, and I'm the perfect scapegoat. The air in the arena hung thick and sweet with the scent of cheap roses and nervous sweat. I was wedged between Brenda, whose polyester suit smelled suspiciously of mothballs, and Mr. Henderson, the school board president, who kept adjusting his tie as if it were a garrote. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the stage, waiting for the moment that felt both inevitable and utterly terrifying. Maya's graduation. Maya, my stepdaughter. The word tasted like ash in my mouth sometimes. For the last 5 years, since I married her father, David, our relationship had been a carefully choreographed dance of avoidance. I was the interloper, the necessary evil, the woman who had dared to move into the house where her mother, Sarah, used to reign supreme. Sarah had passed away tragically young, and Maya, then 12, had never forgiven me for filling the void. Or maybe she just never let me in close enough to see if there was a void to fill in the first place. David, bless his oblivious heart, thought things were fine. "She's just a teenager, Mark," he'd say, clapping me on the shoulder. "Give her time. She loves you deep down." Deep down, I suspected Maya considered me an aggressively beige houseplant. Present, necessary for oxygen perhaps, but utterly forgettable. I watched her walk across the stage to receive her diploma. She was stunning tonight, radiating a fierce, fragile confidence that was all her own. Dark hair pulled back severely, a triumphant tilt to her chin. When she stepped down, she scanned the crowd, her eyes passing right over me as if I were invisible scrim. A standard procedure. David beamed, waving frantically. I managed a small, polite clap. The reception afterward was a chaotic blur of congratulations and lukewarm punch. Maya was immediately enveloped by her friends, laughing with that bright, unburdened sound that always made me feel older, heavier. I tried to catch David's eye. He was busy accepting accolades for raising such a wonderful young woman. Fine. I decided to grab a few stray napkins and clear a path near the entrance. That's when she broke free from the throng. Maya walked directly toward me. My heart did a strange, hopeful flutter. Maybe, just maybe, after 5 years of polite distance, tonight was the night the ice would finally crack. She stopped right in front of me, her expensive graduation gown rustling slightly. "Mark," she said. Her voice was low, cutting through the surrounding noise. "Congratulations, Maya," I managed, forcing a genuine smile. That was an incredible speech, really inspiring. She didn't return the smile. Her eyes, usually guarded, were sharp, almost predatory. She leaned in close, and I braced myself for the inevitable snide remark, the whispered insult about my taste in ties or the inadequacy of my existence. "You know, you really shouldn't be here," she murmured, so close I could feel the faint coolness of her breath. "You're just the furniture." The words were a physical blow, sharper than any I'd anticipated. I felt the heat rise to my face, the familiar sting of rejection. I opened my mouth to respond, to finally push back against the years of icy treatment, to tell her how much I had tried. But before I could get a single syllable out, before I could even process the dismissal, she tilted her head, her expression shifting from scorn to something cold and calculating. She reached up, not to hug me, but to adjust something tiny on my lapel, a minuscule, almost invisible speck of dried mud. As her fingers brushed my jacket, she whispered one last thing, a sentence that wiped the floor out from under me. And Dad still has absolutely no idea where the savings bonds disappeared to, does he? The reception hall, moments before a sight of boisterous celebration, suddenly seemed to tilt on its axis. Maya's words hung in the perfumed air, heavy and undeniably loaded. The savings bonds. My mind raced, grasping for purchase on the slippery ground Maya had just unveiled. David and I shared accounts for joint investments, yes, but the pre-college education bonds, the ones set aside since before Sarah's death, those were supposed to be locked away in the safe deposit box at the bank, the key kept on David's antique watch fob. "What are you talking about?" I managed, my voice coming out as a reedy croak, completely at odds with the authoritative tone I usually maintained in the office. My hands, which had been resting casually at my sides, clenched into tight fists inside the folds of my suit pockets. Maya pulled back, a slow, triumphant smirk spreading across her face. It wasn't the triumphant smile of a graduate. It was the calculated expression of someone who had just detonated a small charge. "Oh, come on, Mark," she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The ones you've been managing since Dad asked you to help consolidate everything after the funeral 5 years ago." 5 years. The period immediately following Sarah's passing, when David was lost in a fog of grief, trusting me completely to handle the messy financial aftermath, including sorting through Sarah's estate paperwork. I had consolidated things. I'd moved the bonds from Sarah's old filing cabinet to the bank, or so I believed. "They are secure," I insisted, though a tremor of genuine panic was starting to snake through my chest. "In the safe deposit box. You need to stop this nonsense, Maya." "Do I?" She raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, her gaze mocking my defensiveness. "Because when Dad went to check last month just to finalize the wiring for my university deposit, the box was empty. Completely empty, Mark, except for a very old, very yellowed napkin tucked in the back corner." A napkin. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead, despite the climate control in the venue. I remembered a napkin, a crumpled piece of paper I'd used to quickly jot down a password hint David had given me years ago, sticking it to the inside flap of the safe deposit box paperwork before filing it. Had I accidentally left it in the box? "And what was on this napkin, Maya?" I demanded, leaning in, forcing myself to meet her gaze. This was no longer about petty slights. This was turning into an accusation. Maya laughed, a short, sharp burst of air. "Oh, it wasn't a hint, Mark. It was a very specific request, written in Sarah's handwriting, addressed directly to Dad. It essentially told him to never let you near the bonds again, claiming you had a history of poor judgment regarding family funds. Funny how you never mentioned that little detail to Dad, isn't it?" The blood drained from my face. Sarah had written that? If David saw that note, if he truly believed his late wife had warned him against me regarding money, everything would collapse. My marriage, my reputation, maybe even worse if this spiraled into a legal accusation. "You're lying," I whispered, desperation creeping in. "You forged that note." "Did I?" Maya stepped back, drawing attention as she moved towards the exit, clearly enjoying my unraveling. Maybe I found the note when I was looking for old yearbooks in the attic last week. Maybe I found the key Dad thought he'd lost, tucked inside the lining of Sarah's favorite gardening jacket. Either way, the bonds are gone, and you're the last person who had access to the necessary paperwork to even know they existed 5 years ago. She paused at the door, turning back one last time to deliver the final blow. Her eyes were hard, devoid of the teenage angst I usually attributed to her. "The graduation party is at our house tonight, Mark. Everyone will be there. Your loving wife, David, all your colleagues. And while you're struggling to cut the cake, I'll be making my toast. And I promise you, by the end of the night, everyone will know exactly why you're nothing to me. Unless, of course, you can explain where that money went before midnight." She swept out into the evening air, leaving me paralyzed by the punchline of her perfect, venomous setup. I had less than 3 hours until the reception started at home, and I had absolutely no idea where those bonds were or what Sarah's alleged note actually said. I rushed to my phone, fumbling for David's number, needing to get home, needing to check the safe deposit box paperwork immediately, needing to prepare for an explosion I could no longer contain. But as I pulled up David's contact, an incoming call notification flashed across my screen. It wasn't David. It was a blocked number, one I'd never seen before. Hesitantly, my thumb hovered over the accept button. I had to know if Maya was bluffing or if this was real. I took a deep, shaky breath and pressed the green icon. "Hello?" I managed. A distorted, low voice answered instantly, sounding like gravel being poured into a metal drum. "Mark," the voice hissed, "I have the bonds, and I have something much more interesting than a napkin. I have the original police report from Sarah's accident. You might want to know what the official cause of death really was before your new daughter starts sharing her own theories." The distorted voice faded into a hollow click, leaving a ringing silence in my ear that somehow felt louder than the entire graduation party before it. Sarah's accident, a closed case, a tragic single-car skid on black ice 5 years ago. David and I had grieved, rebuilt, and moved on. Or so I thought. The original police report. My breath hitched. I leaned heavily against a nearby pillar, my tailored suit suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. I knew the basics. Sarah had been driving home late from a charity gala. Rain had turned to ice. She'd lost control on the winding curve near the old reservoir. It was ruled an accident, unavoidable. But this caller, this mysterious operator who clearly knew about Maya's financial threat and possessed something far more volatile, suggested otherwise. If they had the original report, perhaps it contained details that had been sanitized, amended, or outright buried before the official findings were released. I glanced frantically toward the main exit. I had to get home, but I couldn't leave without some sort of defense. Maya's ultimatum hung over me: confess about the bonds, or face public humiliation based on a note I hadn't written, or maybe had written but hadn't seen in years. I dialed David back immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice jovial. "Mark, having a nice chat with Maya. She just bounded off looking like she's planning world domination. Say, about that university wiring—" "David, listen to me," I cut in, my voice tight with forced authority. "Do you remember when you asked me to consolidate Sarah's investments? The bonds?" There was a brief pause on his end, the background noise shifting from cheerful chatter to something quieter, more intimate. "Yeah, of course. Why? Did you find a better yield somewhere? I told you, trust your judgment." "No, David. Maya seems to think they've vanished, and she mentioned a note from Sarah." The joviality evaporated. "A note? What note? Mark, are you messing with me? I haven't looked at that box in months." "David, I need you to go to the safe deposit box now," I urged. "Forget the party for 5 minutes. If there's anything strange in there, a napkin, a letter, call me immediately. Do not show it to Maya. Do you understand? Do not show it to anyone." "Mark, you're scaring me. Everything is fine." "Well, look tomorrow." "No, David, now," I repeated, my voice brooking no argument, the urgency of the anonymous caller fueling my desperation. "If you value our marriage, check the box. Meet me at the house in an hour. I have to go call the bank about the key access log first." I hung up before he could argue further. I knew David wouldn't rush. He'd wait until after the initial wave of guests arrived. That gave me a window. I bolted for my car, the plastic cup of lukewarm punch abandoned on the nearest table. As I sped away from the high school parking lot, my mind wrestled with two crises: the potential financial ruin Maya threatened and the terrifying possibility that my late wife's death wasn't an accident. I drove not toward my house, but toward the downtown branch of the First National Bank. I had the corporate account keys. I might be able to pull the electronic access log without a full retrieval request, proving who last accessed the box. The bank was closing, but I flashed my executive ID badge and convinced a very reluctant night manager to let me into the records room under the guise of an urgent audit requirement. The log was stored on a microfiche reel. 20 minutes of frantic searching under the harsh fluorescent light, and I found it. The access log for Box 419, Sarah's box, which I had last accessed, according to David, 5 years ago. I scanned the dates. There were 4 entries: Sarah's initial deposit, David's consolidation update 3 weeks later, and 2 more entries from David over the next 2 years. Then nothing until last month. My breath caught. The final entry, dated exactly 3 weeks ago, was not David's signature. It was scrawled, hasty, but undeniably recognizable as Maya's looping script signing for access. The same day, according to her, that she was looking for old yearbooks in the attic. So Maya had the bonds. She also had a fabricated note ready to deploy. But how did she get access to the bank? And why was she lying about my past financial dealings if she was the one who emptied the box? I printed the access log slip, the physical evidence burning in my hand. I was about to call the manager back to secure a formal statement when my phone buzzed again. It was the blocked number. I snatched it up, my adrenaline spiking dangerously high. "What is it? What do you want?" The gravelly voice chuckled, a horrible, grating sound. "I see you've been busy, Mark, checking records, very proactive, but you're looking in the wrong place. The bonds are gone, I know that. Tell me what you want," I hissed, glancing around the deserted office. "I don't want the money, Mark. I want you to understand what you're protecting. See, the police report wasn't the only thing I pulled from the evidence locker. I also found the secondary documents, the ones detailing the vehicle damage." My knuckles were white where I gripped the desk edge. The car skidded. It was ice. "No," the voice corrected softly, savoring the word. "The initial impact was low speed, Mark. The skid marks? They only start after the primary impact point. That's what the first responders saw before they started writing up the official conclusion. Someone hit Sarah's car, and the report clearly identifies the registered owner of the striking vehicle, someone who, I suspect, was very close to the family. A cold, creeping dread enveloped me, heavier than any fear about the savings bonds. If someone hit her car before she skidded, it meant foul play. And if the striking vehicle's owner was very close to the family. "Who was it?" I demanded, my voice barely a squeak. "Tell me who hit her car." The line went silent for a beat, long enough for my mind to scream every possible name. David, an unknown lover, a distant relative. Then the voice returned, quieter now, possessing a chilling certainty that suggested intimate knowledge of my entire life. "It was the spare key you kept hidden under the loose brick by the back porch, Mark. The one you swore you'd never tell anyone about. The one you gave to Sarah's best friend so she could always get into the house when she babysat." The caller paused, letting the implication settle like cyanide. You didn't know Sarah was driving her car that night, did you? The one with the distinct red racing stripe on the bumper? The one that disappeared from the police impound lot 3 days after the funeral? The world narrowed down to the sound of my own ragged breathing echoing in the sterile bank office. Sarah's best friend, Eleanor Vance, the woman David had leaned on for support, the woman who had brought casseroles and offered tearful condolences, the woman who had moved across the country 6 months after the funeral, citing a need for a fresh start, and the spare key hidden under the loose brick. I had given it to Eleanor years ago when she was house-sitting regularly, a gesture of trust, utterly misplaced now. Eleanor, I breathed, the name tasting like bile. She was driving Sarah's car? Not Sarah's car, Mark, the voice corrected, the sound strangely amused. Eleanor was driving her own car, the red-striped one, when she ran Sarah off the road. Sarah was driving home from the gala in her own sedan. But the key detail in the original report, the one they buried, it wasn't about the impact location, Mark. It was about the passenger. I felt a sudden dizzying wave of nausea. Passenger. I had always assumed Sarah was alone. David certainly had. Who was in the car with Sarah? I choked out, gripping the edge of the steel filing cabinet for support. That, the voice purred, drawing out the suspense with sadistic pleasure, is the question that's going to make your lovely stepdaughter's little embezzlement announcement tonight look like a minor typo in the school yearbook. Because whoever was in the passenger seat of Sarah's sedan wasn't just a casual friend. They were someone Sarah was meeting in secret. Someone who definitely knew about the plan to leave David. A secret meeting, a secret lover, and now a secret passenger in the crash that killed her. "And you know who this passenger is?" I whispered, terrified of the answer. "I know of them," the caller corrected, "and I know that if Eleanor ran Sarah off the road to stop her from leaving David, she might have been acting on someone else's orders. Or perhaps," the voice dropped to a conspiratorial register, "she was merely cleaning up a mess that Sarah's secret intended to create." "What are you talking about? Who are you?" I demanded, stepping away from the desk, frantically looking around the empty room as if I could physically locate the source of this nightmare. "I'm the cleanup crew, Mark. I'm the loose end, and right now you are the perfect distraction. Maya has the money. You have the motive to hide the truth about Sarah, and I have the means to blow up the entire foundation of this seemingly perfect family tonight at the reception." "If you have the evidence, why come to me?" I pleaded. "Why not just confront David?" "Because David is dull, predictable. But you, Mark," the voice gained a sinister edge, "you are the outsider, the vulnerable link. If I release this information now, Maya will pin the missing bonds and the cover-up of Sarah's death squarely on you. It will be a beautiful, messy explosion, and I get to walk away clean." My heart hammered against my ribs. The reception was starting. Maya was waiting to execute her plan. I had less than an hour to find Eleanor or to somehow acquire the real police report detailing the passenger and the actual nature of Sarah's supposed accident. "What do you need me to do?" I asked, the decision made. I couldn't let Maya destroy me based on half-truths and convenient distractions. I had to fight fire with fire, even if that meant digging up the corpse of my dead wife's secrets. "Good. I knew you'd see the logic," the caller said. "I'm going to text you coordinates. They lead to a storage unit downtown. Inside, you'll find the red sedan, or what's left of it. And I've also left a nice little gift for you inside that unit, a key to a safety deposit box. That box contains the original unredacted police file, the passenger's identity, and a notarized statement from Eleanor Vance detailing exactly why she hit Sarah's car. The line went dead again. A second later, my phone buzzed with a text message containing a GPS location that pointed toward the industrial docks across town, nowhere near the reception venue. And beneath the coordinates, a single chilling message, midnight mark. Don't be late for your final scene. I checked the time on the bank clock, 6:45 p.m. The reception would be in full swing by 7:30 p.m. I had less than an hour to drive across town, break into a storage unit, retrieve crucial evidence that could exonerate me or bury me deeper, all while David was hosting a party where his daughter planned to publicly accuse me of theft. I sprinted out of the records room, ignoring the sputtering night manager. As I reached my car, another message popped up on my phone. This time, it was from an unknown number. But the profile picture was a stark close-up shot of Maya's face, illuminated by the flashbulb glare of a camera. A picture clearly taken from inside my house, right now. The text below it read, "Having a great time, Mark. David is just about to cut the cake. Don't worry, I kept a seat clear for you." The storage unit complex was a bleak, echoing labyrinth of corrugated steel under the bruised twilight sky. My heart hammered a desperate rhythm against my ribs, drowning out the sound of my own panicked footsteps crunching on the gravel drive. 7:15 p.m. I was already late for the execution of my life, and now I was miles away hunting for a ghost car and a key to a secret vault. I found Unit 114 instantly. It was slightly ajar, a hairline gap between the door and the frame, a clear invitation. I slammed my shoulder against the cold metal, wrenching the door open. Inside, the air was stale and oily, thick with the scent of decay and old gasoline. Illuminated by my phone's flashlight, the interior was small, dedicated solely to one object, a skeletal, rust-eaten husk of a sedan. The frame was recognizable even without its paint. It was an older model, distinctive only by the peeling, faded stripe of crimson paint running down the driver's side door, Eleanor's car. I swept the beam across the floor. Tucked beneath the driver's seat, half hidden by decades of dust, was a small, heavy key fob bearing the logo of an obscure, long-defunct credit union, the safety deposit box key. As I pocketed the key, I noticed something else beneath the crushed dashboard, a small, hard object. It was a wedding band, tarnished, but heavy. I picked it up. It wasn't David's. It was Sarah's. She never took it off, even for the gala. If she was driving this car, she hadn't been alone, and she hadn't been alone when she was hit. This was the smoking gun. Eleanor hadn't just run Sarah off the road. She had taken Sarah's car, or perhaps Sarah had switched vehicles with her for some clandestine reason. The passenger identity in the unredacted file was the absolute key to understanding why Eleanor would kill Sarah, and why someone was now using that secret against me. I scrambled back into my car, the storage unit door swinging shut behind me, a loud, definitive clang echoing in the sudden silence. 7:30 p.m. David's reception. Time to crash the party. I peeled out of the lot and headed toward the suburban street where David lived, the GPS coordinates for the safety deposit box already loaded into my navigation system. I couldn't get to the bank now. I had to handle Maya first. I had to look her in the eye and tell her she'd played the wrong hand. I pulled into the driveway of my house just as the string lights illuminating the backyard flickered on. The music was loud, the laughter grating. I could see the silhouette of David approaching the patio, a silver cake knife held aloft, Maya standing right beside him, her posture radiating victory. I marched through the back door, ignoring the startled gasps of the assembled guests, friends, colleagues, David's firm partners. I walked straight to the patio, the printed bank access log from my earlier frantic trip now clenched in my hand alongside the heavy key fob. David looked utterly confused. "Mark, you made it. Where have you been? We were just about to—" "Don't cut the cake, David," I interrupted, my voice ringing with a force I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't shouting, but the sheer suddenness of my presence silenced the entire gathering. All eyes, including Maya's smug, expectant gaze, were fixed on me. Maya stepped forward, a triumphant sneer already forming. "Look who decided to join us, everyone. The prodigal husband. Did you manage to move the money, Mark, or are you here to confess?" I ignored her, focusing solely on David. "David, the savings bonds are gone. Maya took them 3 weeks ago. I have the bank access log right here." I slapped the printout onto the patio table, next to the cake. David stared at the paper, his face draining of color, as he recognized his own bank's official watermark. Maya let out a theatrical sigh. "Oh, please, Mark, you're trying to frame me? You're the one with the desperate need to cover up where you funneled the money these last 5 years." "I didn't touch the bonds, David," I said, turning my attention back to my bewildered husband. "But I did find something else. Something that explains why Eleanor Vance suddenly fled the country after Sarah died. Something I found in her car." I held up the heavy wedding band. "Sarah's ring. She was driving Eleanor's car that night, David, and she wasn't alone." Maya scoffed, but her eyes flickered, the first sign of genuine panic. "She was meeting her lover," I continued, letting the words hang in the silence, watching David's expression shatter. "Someone she planned to run away with. Eleanor found out. She pursued Sarah on that icy road, not to kill her, but to stop her, to stop Sarah from leaving you. But the impact was too hard, and Sarah died." "Stop it!" Maya shrieked, taking a protective step toward David, a completely uncharacteristic act. "That's a lie. Eleanor told me Sarah was planning to expose Dad for tax fraud and run off with the money. That's why she had to be stopped." It was the truth, but twisted into a new shape. Eleanor was Eleanor's problem. David's potential fraud was Eleanor's leverage. "No, Maya," I said, picking up the key fob. "Eleanor was stopping Sarah from leaving David, but the passenger who was supposed to be safe with Sarah, that person is the real secret. And I know who they are thanks to a very kind stranger who called me 10 minutes ago." I looked directly into Maya's eyes, seizing control of the narrative. The original report details the passenger's name, Maya, and that name isn't going to ruin David's finances or my reputation. It's going to expose the real motive for Sarah's murder, and it has everything to do with why you've been so obsessed with keeping me quiet. I let the suspense stretch until the silence was suffocating. David stared at me, utterly lost, his gaze darting between the bank log and the ring. "The passenger in the car, David, the one Sarah was meeting secretly, was your sister, Mark's first wife, who you told everyone died in childbirth overseas," I stated calmly, pointing at Maya. "And the person who hired Eleanor to intercept them, that person is still in this house. Because the passenger in Sarah's car wasn't some random lover, David. It was you." Maya gasped, stumbling back against the serving table. "No, that's impossible. He was miles away at the gala." I turned slowly to David, holding up the key fob. I haven't been to the bank for the unredacted file yet, David, but the person who called me, the person who wants this information to come out tonight, they didn't leave the storage unit key for me to find. I held up the heavy key fob. They left it for the real person in control, the person who knew exactly where the secret car was and who needed to ensure I found the evidence before you did. I looked past David, past the horrified guests, straight at the woman who had just been revealed as the orchestrator of this entire, poisoned graduation night. My eyes locked onto the only person in the room who hadn't made a sound, the one who had been silent, composed, watching the entire confrontation unfold from the shade of the veranda. The original police report is clear, David, I concluded, my voice dropping to a deadly low register as I pointed directly at my shocked, suddenly very pale wife. The driver who struck Sarah's car was Eleanor, but the person who called me, the person who is currently downloading the passenger's identity from that safety deposit box right now from a laptop in the attic while you all celebrate, is you, David, because you knew Sarah wasn't meeting a lover. You knew she was meeting your estranged first wife, the one you claimed was dead, and you sent Eleanor to stop both of them before they could expose the massive identity fraud you committed years ago. David remained frozen, his face a mask of shock, the cake knife trembling in his hand. Then, from the attic directly above us, a laptop fan whirred to life, followed by a crisp, synthesized voice booming through the house's integrated sound system, drowning out the festive music. Access granted. Passenger identity confirmed. Eleanor Vance. Motive: concealment of bigamy and identity theft.